Okay, good. Got it. All right. What happens if I keep it open too long? It blocks me out. Okay. So it's still loading.
Loading.
And we're live. Welcome to another
What happens if I keep it
episode
open too long? It
of
blocks me
the.
out. Okay.
Oh, it's sorry.
So it's still.
Oh, wow. So it literally has me talking. It started a while ago, even though it said it wasn't starting. Sorry about that. We are live now and we figured it out. This is the Live Clean and Fight Dirty live show here on the Pit Online Dojo on YouTube. Topic: training martial arts as a senior. Everything changes as you get older, and we're here to talk to UFC coach John Hackleman and black belt Kajukenbo black belt to kind of explain how that works. What's that look like? We were just talking off camera about how if you look online for advice on training martial arts as a senior, you'll see a bunch of young guys in their 30s and maybe later 30s, early 40s talking about that. But I think one person to talk to would be John. He's worked with a lot of people and he's worked with himself through this. So I guess let's start with what are some of the changes? When do these changes start? And in your expand, we already know the textbook answer, and I can Google the textbook answer. But in your experience, in specifically in martial arts, when do you start seeing in yourself or in the people you've trained a decline in performance? When do you start seeing that?
I think the answer is twofold. Um, and I'll go for me. For me, um, when I hit martial arts, I hit it hard, and I kept it hard for a long time. That's what he said. But sorry. Anyway, I kept hard. I kept it hard. I trained hard. I trained 5, 6 days a week. I sparred hard every day we sparred, which was 3, 4 times a week. Sparred hard. Um, had a lot of fights. So I think my end came like my senior came a lot earlier than some. Like Glover, he was fighting for a title and winning a title at 44. Um, but he didn't. I mean, he didn't start as early as I did. He didn't have nearly as many fights. He made it to the UFC champion, so he made it a lot farther than I did. But he didn't have the day in and day out grind that I had for 40 years. Or by the time I was 44, I've been doing this since I was 14. So 30 years of like sparring, fighting, drilling. So by 44, I didn't feel like I could have ever fought. I think I had my last official fight at I think 30, 35, and I felt pretty old then. But now it comes to sparring, I still felt really good sparring. Um, I felt like I didn't have the performance that I did, 20 years prior. But like I said, I did a lot of fighting and training and sparring, and so I blew my load. I shot my load back then, and I'm not going to say that's what he said because there's just no need to that for that anymore. But so with that said, like keeping yourself younger, you're gonna stay younger longer. Like if you don't push, and sparring is so much smarter now, drilling and training, and you know, I mean, when I was cutting weight for a fight, like I wanted to weigh in for the Golden Gloves. We had to cut weight just like the UFC guys or wrestlers or whatever, but we didn't do it in a 24-hour dry out, which is bad enough on your system, but it's 24 hours. We actually started cutting weight, including the limiting our water and trying to dehydrate ourselves. We were wearing plastic suits and stuff and jogging on the beach when I'm from Hawaii, so it's already hot enough. But we put on plastic suits, down jackets, sweatpants, army boots, and we would go jogging in the morning. We'd be pouring sweat. We would be cutting for a week. We would start cutting a week out. One of the most dangerous things ever. I mean, so much. research has been done since then, and nobody would ever do that. And that takes a lot out of you. I'm sure that it took a lot out of me. Like, um, so training old isn't always your your just your chronological age. Like Glover at 44 was younger, much younger than I was at 34. But now at 64, I feel younger and fitter and more healthy than most 50-year-olds. I'm not going to go lower than that, but um, so I think that's a big deal is how you've trained, how you've taken care of your body, how you've rested when you should, or if you just went balls out when all the time. So you basically just like with your chin, right? You only have so many knockouts in you. So the guys that say you got to spar hard all the time, those are the guys that lose their chin first because you only have so many knockouts, and then boom, you got a glass jaw after that, and then you'll never get your chin back. So I feel this a lot of that same way with the way I trained and the way I pushed and stuff. So but now I've been training smarter and better for years now. So I feel like I've gotten myself into a place where I am training harder than most guys my age. I am healthier and fitter, stronger than most guys my age. So I feel good about that. And there's a lot of things that have to change. Like, I think the re- the rest days, which everybody always talks about, but and I'm not going to really harp on it that much. But I think you have to take your rest days serious. I take 2 a week, no more. It's not like you got to rest every other day, but I take 2 days a week where I don't train at all. And another thing I do is if I'm training in a 3 day in a row cycle, which I do Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, like if I'm just dead on Wednesday and I just feel burnt, I'll just take that wet Thursday off, and then maybe I'll go.
All right, everyone. We had a
Oh,
little
there we go.
technical difficulty there and
There
lost
we go.
John, but he's back.
There we
So
go. Yeah, I'm back.
you cut out what when you were talking about how if you feel a little down or a little more
Yeah.
sluggish, you'll take an extra. You won't take an extra swear. You'll take your rest day a little earlier, like on a Thursday, and then you were explaining how you recalibrate that if you do that.
Yeah. So if they take the Wednesday Thursday off, because by Wednesday it's like I usually do Wednesday hard, Thursday medium, Friday Thursday hard again. So if my Wednesday I'm already feeling it, like I'm overdoing it, then then I'll take that day off, and then I don't want to take 2 days off in a row. So I'll take Thursday and just go easy. Or if after I worked out on Wednesday I feel like burnt, then I'll take Thursday, and instead of working out, I'll just take off Thursday altogether, and then just take a little walk on Friday. So I try to I want to adapt and you gotta be in tune your body. But here's a really important one. This is very, very important. You have to be in tune with your body, and you don't want to overtrain. And if you really feel like you're overtraining, you should just take one day off. Take the next day off. It's better to take an extra day off than work too. It's better to work a little than a little too much. You should be right here, but if you're here, you got to take a day off. It's better to be a little less than a little more, because a little more will make you over into the overtrained zone, and that's not a good zone to be in. You get sicker easier, including really bad illnesses. You break things more easily. You get sprains, strains, etc., more easily. But here's what's so important: so many people, the majority of the people, I don't even know what the percentage is, but I guarantee it's in the 90s. They they always err on undertraining, and they undertrain so much they don't need to fucking worry about overtraining. You know, they just that just comes to them because they saw it on a fucking post or something on Instagram or something. It's more common for the our culture to undertrain than overtrain. So when I'm talking about overtraining guys, I'm talking about the really hard working guys out there like Glover Teixeira. I always had to pull him back. Court McGee and those guys. And I'm not even talking about other fighters, but most people, they don't overtrain. They undertrain. So they should always train more. So that's a tough you gotta the way you gotta do that now is not only the way you feel like really uh experienced and smart athletes or athletic people like me. I'm a really smart athletic guy where I know if I'm overtraining a little, I'll pull back. I can tell if my fighters are overtraining a little, I'll pull back. I can tell if they're undertraining a little, I'll push them more. But so I don't need to use quantitative numbers or distances, to tell. Like some people have to, they have to do run the mile in this, and then they can just tell if their mile gets a little longer, takes a little longer, then they got to pick it up a little. If they're on it all the time, maybe they pull back a little. So a lot of people use numbers, right? Objective numbers to tell if they're overtraining, undertraining, training just right, or whatever. Some people you can use perceived level of exertion, right? Like PLE, perceived level of exertion. So I can tell, if I'm overtraining, undertraining, training just right. If you've been doing it as long as I have, usually you can. So I think that's an important thing to realize. And out of all of what I just said, even though that sounds like just a lot of talk, the most important thing I'm saying there is most of you guys out there, you know, don't need to go on numbers because you're watching this show, you're probably a martial artist. But for the average Joe, you need the numbers because you'll quit too easy. You'll always think you're overtraining so you can undertrain more. And that's the way most Americans are. And that's why for you guys, you need to stay with your numbers. You need to get a good goal and you need to stick with it. For the martial artists that are, just really, you know, skilled and experienced martial artists, we can use perceived level of exertion. Bing.
And even then, I still like the numbers. I mean, after my martial arts training, I still like running, cycling, and swimming. And when I look at the
Yeah.
numbers, it gives me an idea, even for me, because I train 6 days a week, and sometimes I get pushed into seven if someone asks me for an extra training session. So it gives me an idea for the other end of it. Am I overtraining? I can look at my numbers real quick and be like, hey, I'm 5 minutes behind my average pace. Something's up. And it'll also help me gauge if I'm getting sick. Because that's another thing is I have asthma, so I'll easily overlook
Yeah.
illness real quick. I'll be like, oh, it's just asthma. And then next thing you know, I've got a fever. I'm going to the doctor. So like, that's another thing I gotta be careful for.
Yeah.
So we
Yeah.
have
Yeah.
we have some comments here. Um, Zen Baron says, I'm too young for this topic. Well, Zen, you're not getting any younger, so stick around. John Cox says, hey, my hips are jacked up. Peptides, TRT, caffeine, nicotine, and hate. On a scale of 1 to 10, what intensity is hard? So when you were saying earlier, you have your
Yeah.
hard days and your easy days.
Right.
He's asking for some numbers for that.
So the numbers I'll give you are on the hard days. I'm going to push the cart. I'm going to push the drilling and the sparring a little harder. Okay. And since I don't spar anymore, I push I do my bag work and I do all that. Pretty much that's medium. That's the medium part. Bag work, techniques, etc. But when I do my anaerobic work, like sprinting work, those are the days I push really hard. those are the days that I really push it hard, and those are my hard days. So I don't, I'll look at numbers too here and there, but I don't build on the numbers. I don't really do as much with the numbers because I've been doing this so long. I know the numbers already, and they're usually, if I look at the, say the RPM that I'm doing my airdyne, I got to keep it at, I want to keep it at, say I want to keep it at 60 for 60 seconds, and you got to keep it there, and that's a push for me. Or I want to row my 1,000 meters in 3 minutes and 45 seconds. I know that pace. That's a hard anaerobic pace as well. So there's those things that I do and that I push, and I don't really push to overtrain that much anymore. I don't. I just I'm been doing this long enough where I'm kind of settled into a good pace. What was your question though about my was that was your question?
I think so. I think you kind of answered it as far as how hard you push. He was asking on a scale of one to,
Oh, okay. So
but he
so
wanted,
I'll give
even though
you
you say don't look at numbers, he kind of wanted like on a scale of 1 to 10, what, what is an intense day on a scale of 1 to 10? And
yeah.
what is a non-intense day on a scale of 1 to 10?
Okay. So for instance, I'll give you one. So it's all going to be about the same bag work, unless the bag work is my workout, which it is sometimes. Like sometimes it'll be like four punches a sprawl, and then 1,000 punches, 100 kicks, and this and that. It involves the bag work. Sometimes I'll go 5 minute full on for with a minute off, 3 rounds. That's 15 minutes hard, and I get everybody's heart rate up. I get my heart rate up doing that. But usually for my anaerobic work, I go off the bag and I do a machine or some kind of body weight thing that gets my heart rate up, like like burpees or rowing or airdyne, or even the sledging. If you do it hard and fast, you got to work out there. So I would say here's one. I'm gonna do 7 minutes of sledge with a 20-pound sledge with hitting over 100. Okay, I'll do my airdyne bike where I'll do Tabata sprints. So that's 10 seconds or 20 seconds on, 10 seconds off, 8 times, and I'll do that for balls out. And then I'll do one more thing. Maybe I'll do the incline treadmill at 10 and 10, and then try to do that for as long as I can, which is usually going to be way less than a minute. So that to me, right there, I got my heart rate up. They say they want your heart rate up about, whatever your heart rate is, your maximum heart rate, and it's 120 minus your age. So for me, like my wife gets her heart rate up like 160, 170. I get my heart rate up about 140 and I'm fucking done. But that's for me, that's a 65-year-old guy's, uh, that's his maximum heart rate. So we're both pushing to our max, but everybody's max is a little different.
So you would say, I mean, after just listening to you talk about going balls out would be a 10. So like John,
Yeah.
when you're asking the question, he's saying that he does this interval training, and in the interval training he does a 10 for as long as he can, and then he'll
Yeah.
take a break after that. And then also,
Yeah.
like you mentioned earlier, you don't do that every day. You'll do that one day, and then the next
Yeah.
day you'll kind of cut it back,
Slow it
maybe
down.
go for a
Yeah.
walk, go
I
for like
do that Tuesday, Thursday, Saturday. Tuesday, Thursday, Saturday. But it's not always, usually it's a sprint. But sometimes, like when we do Wilhelmina in Hawaii, from the bottom to the top, that's a mile. Nobody can sprint that mile, but it's pretty much a 10. But you can't keep a 10 for that long, so it's a grind. It's a grind. So it's a 10 mentally, but it's not, and physically, but it's not your heart rate isn't up to 95% of its maximum heart rate for the entire thing. You can't do that, right? Imagine trying to sprint a marathon, right? Can you imagine, like, if you tried to sprint like a sprinter who did a hundred meter, like Usain Bolt. Imagine if he ran the same intensity for the marathon as he did his 10. He'd be done in less than an hour.
I've
So
seen, I told you, I just did that ultra marathon and I saw a lot of regular marathon people joining us. And these ultra marathons are in the mountains, there's trails. And these, you can always tell who the marathon people are because they're running up the mountain. They're like going at it in the very first, 10K, they're going up and they're passing everyone. And then 15K in, those are the same people that are waning out, getting injured. Because there's no way you're going to do an ultra marathon at that pace. You have to be like at
no.
a six or a five. You
But,
can do a 10. You can do a
but
10.
with but that but with that said, but with that said, that's a good point because so when you're doing that, you should pace yourself. Okay. When you're training, you should never pace yourself. You should never pace yourself. And I'm not talking about for a race or anything because that's not what my wheelhouse isn't races. My wheelhouse is fights. And if you think you always have to think that your opponent is not going to pace himself, so you can't either. So like when some guys are training on the bag and I'm telling them to go all out, they're pacing themselves. There's no pacing. Well, should I go? Or if I have to do, if they have to do, they have to do say 1,000 punches in 6 minutes, and they're trying to pace themselves. I said, you're not. Your opponent's not going to pace himself. Go balls out, and I'd rather you went balls out and ran out of steam because then you're eventually not going to. Because there's fighters out there that are going balls out the entire fight. Glover Teixeira, right? So if you're up against someone that's not going to pace himself and he's not going to slow down and you're pacing yourself, you're fucked. We got any comments?
Some comments here. John Cox, how would you slowly reintroduce training for a 40-year-old? Okay, so if I understand this question correctly, what you're saying is reintroduce training for a 40-year-old. So we're saying someone who used to train and they're starting their training again. For some reason, they stopped, maybe because of an injury or life, divorce, whatever. And they decided that they're going to start up again at 40. How would you
Yeah,
start again?
slowly but consistently. They have because their ego or their memory might be of where they left off, and they might have left off training at a higher pace. But I would start them, and nobody, please don't say, "Well, I got to get in shape before I start training." You know how stupid that is, right? But anyway, we've talked about that. So I would just say you start off slow, really slow, like the Makiwara. Makiwara is a perfect example. I would say go about 50% for 2 minutes on the Makiwara, right? And then you just go for for like 2 minutes. And then maybe every week you can add a minute, right? Same thing, 50%. Then when you get to 10 minutes, then you're still going 50%. Then you start going 55%, 60% on the Makiwara at 10 minutes. And then once you get to like 75, 80%, that's where you are. Because Makiwara isn't a sprint, it's a jog. So you don't want to sprint on Makiwara, but you do want to build up the power. But you don't want to try to break your hand. You want to build it up so the bones can densify over time. Because this is what's helping your bones. This is why you're doing the Makiwara. But now when you're on the bag, you're simulating a fight more. So you're going to be sprinting, you're going to be moving, you're going to be, lateral motion, sprawling, shots, etc. So a bag is more like a real fight. So you pick it up more with the bag, and you're not going to break your hands on it. You got bag gloves on, etc. So on the bag, you can go up to 100% on the bag, just balls out. You can't do that on a Makiwara. So the heavy bag, you can go 100%. Your burpees, you can go 100%. Sprinting, you can go 100%. Air dying, you can go 100%. Those are the things that you should go 100. What's up? Yeah, what's up? What do you mean?
He had hurt his finger. Like, I wasn't sure if it was just sprained or possibly broken, but
And then do you have a look at it?
You do just.
You can do that while I'm doing this. Anyway, somebody hurt their finger. So I mean, so that's. I mean, I think that your level of exertion, of your perceived exertion, I think is a big. It's a skill that everybody should learn. And then for you numbers guys, you want to even when you're hitting the bag, you're click click click. I mean, for you runners, or if we're doing a run to be a fighter, if you're rowing to be a fighter, all those things you can you can quantitate and qualitate them, and that is easier for a lot of people. Some people, I just want to treat it like a fight, just balls out. And then once in a while, you should check in on your numbers to just see where you think you are. Maybe you're a little lower, maybe you're a little higher. You go, oh shit, I made some progress. Okay, but the fight itself, you can't qualitate it on the bag unless you had a meter, like some kind of meter, like it would measure each punch and then measure the cumulative. But the problem with that is, no matter how hard you punch, if you're hitting someone on the cheekbone, you want to show me? Okay, hold on a sec. Okay,
All
let
right.
me see what happened.
So while John's taking
Let me see what your name, Bear. Oh, let me see. Is it your pinky? Oh, did it hurt? Did that hurt?
Is it both of them or just this one? Just this one?
Can you release it all? Check it like this. I would tape it to this and just see tomorrow. And if it's worse, then you go, it's broken. But if it's broken, it's a pinky. It's not, yeah. Yeah, or if it was worse, then they'll do it, but it's a pinky. It's not a liver or your heart. So I would tape it to this one and just see how it is tomorrow. Come on, bud. Can you do this hand? Can you give me this hand, Nux? Can you do this hand? How about it? Thank you. All right. Come on, buddy. Yeah, just tape it. All right. All right. Cute kid. Here it is, Pinky. Doing bear crawls.
So
Bear crawls. Yeah.
our next question is coming from Mr. Awak. How long are your Kempo classes for your students?
An hour.
Okay, so they're 1 hour.
Yeah,
John,
they used to be an hour and a half, and I'm thinking of getting it there again.
and John Cox asks, what do you say to someone that you know is BSing their intensity in training? I almost
It's such an easy one. Okay, so
reminds me of the guy. So when I was training at your with your guys on Friday, and that one guy that was insisting on dropping me, and I wasn't going down. And then he said, if I have to keep doing this, because if you don't go down, if I don't drop you, he's gonna call me a bitch later and say I didn't hit you hard enough that I wasn't going, I wasn't intense.
who was that? I don't know who that was. Was that Kenny?
So he was a bigger guy. He's 37. He said he's been training with you since he was a kid, but I forgot his name. Go ahead.
You gotta admit, you gotta admit, we got a good group of guys.
It was fun. So what do you say to someone who you know is BSing their intensity during training?
Oh, it's just that all comes out in the test, because with all my training, I'm not a quantitative, qualitative guy. I'm qualitative with the techniques, but you know what I mean? I'm not for fitness. But when it comes test time, my 8 counts are as quantitative, as qualitative as you can get, because you have to stay with my count. It's not just go do 100 burpees or 7 minutes of this and then try to count, and sometimes it's off. And when I'm doing my 8 counts, which is this count right here, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 1, 1, 2, 3. They have to do certain movements that are very difficult, like mountain climbers, push-ups, etc., sprawls. So they have to do certain things to that number. And I tell them what things they have to do. It's usually 1 push-up, a sprawl, 1 push-up, and 2 mountain climbers. And to do that at that count, 1, 2, you have to stay with that count. So if anybody drops off that count, they're out. They don't, if they drop out before the number, they're out. Like For their higher belt, they have to do 80 in a row at that count without missing one. They miss one, they don't get the belt. So that's how I qualitate and quantitate for belt testing. And that I don't do kata, show if they can do a kata or some kind of other made up fucking just completely lunatic kind of thing where martial artists test on that. They test on that. If they can memorize how to do like 18 completely random fucking useless techniques, and if they can do them, that goes on towards their promotion. You know, it's ludicrous as opposed to one, two. It's just so simple, and you don't have to. It's. I love the way that we test, and that's the way we've been testing forever. Then I'm gonna take that the next level over, like Chuck. Let's say Chuck's for his black belt. So he had to do that, but then he had to get in the cage and spar because now there's no numbers. I just want to see how good he's doing sparring. He might not be the best sparrer in the world, but I want to see how well he can get hit, how well he can keep going, how much conditioning he has during the fight or the sparring, you know, how he pushes past pain, you know, and of course, Glover, Chuck, you know, all those guys, they do great on the test, but that's another way I test my students. So they get tested on that side, and then they get tested on the on the quantitative and qualitative conditioning drills I do. And I change them every cycle. Every 3 months, I change the workouts because I don't want people to get good at the workouts. I want people to get in better shape. So if I only tested on the 8 counts, they'd be 8 counts experts. But then I might switch it up and say, Glover sprawl for give me 100 Glover sprawls in 10 minutes, and boom. And next thing you know, they're terrible at that. So I want my conditioning is overall. Anyone can do it. I don't want to do muscle ups, double unders on the. I don't want anything that they have to learn how to do and practice what to do. I just want things that'll show me their conditioning. Like anyone can sprint, right? Anyone can run. You know, anyone can go on a treadmill. Anyone can do an air dyne. Anyone can do an 8 count. So that's how I do it.
Another comment coming from Mr. Awa3. Boss Rutan said the same thing about building up slowly for a fight, where he said he would start off doing 5 1-minute rounds and heavy bag and work up to 5 5-minute rounds. Okay, so he's just commenting on how you were saying about, you know, how to build up.
Yeah.
Yeah. All right, cool. All right. Well, do we have any more comments? I don't see any more comments or questions. I think that was the last one. Do you have? And is the kid okay? That's how was his pinky? I know it's off topic, but is he all right?
It didn't look broken, but he's such a cute kid.
All right.
Yeah. So he'll. What is today? Today's Wednesday. What is he doing? Oh, he's 4:45 class. Yeah, that's all. I mean, that's all we got. What do you think?
I mean, again, I think it's really important to be able to, and again, we're making a lot of assumptions here. We're assuming that the person watching is not training, which I think is a good assumption. Like you said earlier, a lot of people aren't training enough. And some of the people that follow the show are also teaching. And I think that's where that one question came. How do you push someone who's BSing their intensity? So I think that's another good thing to keep in mind. Like, as far as
you know what else is good? You know what else is good? Put cameras in the gym, and then when they really suck at something, bring them into the office and show them. Yeah, I've done that. It works like a charm.
So there you go.
Especially when you like after class, you go, "Hey, you did such and such pretty bad, man. I mean, you're really shamming on that." No, I did it great. I did just as good as anyone else. Then you call them in the office and you show them, and then they'll look and go, "Oh shit, okay, never mind. Sorry about that."
If you can't afford cameras in your gym, you can just as easily get a $5 stand. I use a phone. I have my phone recording stuff.
Oh yeah.
For the for the same reason, for the same purpose. I mean, there's also some good stuff I can use for social media later, but also if anybody says something like that, I can immediately, oh, take a look and you tell me what you think.
Yeah. I mean, to be honest, like, and the conditioning is my it's my biggest tester. Because what was the biggest tester in all karate? Even Kajukenbo, what was the biggest tester? Wasn't even sparring. It was fucking katas. Do you know how if you look at that, do you know how just completely backwards and just you're not teaching anyone anything. This guy's not learning anything but a bunch of pre-programmed moves that he has to memorize. So his testing is memorization. I mean, he's memorizing shit. I mean, it's crazy. Oh, well, you got to memorize the left hook. No, you don't. You throw it. I don't care how it looks. I really don't care how it looks. If it works, that's all I care about. Like, some guy was interviewed. It was a heavyweight. He was going for the heavyweight UFC title, and Gan McGee. And they asked him in an interview, well, how's John as a trainer or something? He goes, what the thing I like most about John is um, all he cares about is what works. And he says he like for his left hook, he says if it drops the guy, it works. If it didn't, it doesn't. Period. So So anyway, I think it's minimalistic and brutal and realistic. And then they use that word a lot. Um, um, Pressure tested. I mean, our stuff is pressure tested at the highest level there is. You know, short of hand-to-hand combat in Afghanistan or something. How often does that happen? But so that's I mean I think that's kind of an important thing, and I think that's one thing we um, push harder than any martial arts gym I've seen. What else? Somebody said something today I was thinking about. I wanted to. Oh, I know. It's not on this topic, so I don't want. There's this guy I watch. Um, and he's a I don't want to use his name right now, but he's a Filipino guy, and he does a lot of knife stuff and stick stuff, and he's really funny. And you think you know who it is?
I think I know who you're talking about, but I'm skipping on his name. But I think if it's the guy who's always wearing a beanie, he's got like a goatee,
Yeah, not a beanie, but it's like
like
it's
a
like one
hat,
of those
like a hat
stocking
thing.
hats.
Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
yeah, 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 yeah. He said something that was interesting today. This is off topic, but um, and a lot of people say stuff that I said already, and I'm like, they must watch my stuff, or maybe it's just a common thing. So it was one of my videos was the first strike, and it was the first strike with a knife, and you cut his carotid. You could kill him with that first strike, and he kind of came down on it then, and then he was saying he was talking about learning stuff and knowing stuff, and um, that he goes, yeah, I've even seen videos where it says to just strike first, and with the knife you can kill him. You gotta kill the guy. What I mean, and I'm thinking, what if the guy wasn't gonna kill you after all? I was like, so I thought about it. I thought really hard about that because I take that seriously, and I thought it's true. That's true. There's two extremes. You either react a little too quickly because in your mind, your sense of your better judgment said he was going to attack me, so I attacked first. And maybe then after the fact, I don't know how you're going to find out he's dead already, but maybe he wasn't going to kill you, but you thought he was. That's terrible. That's the extreme. The other side of that extreme, that would be his argument, would be hesitate, think, analyze the situation. Now you're thinking so much. Now he sliced your throat. You're dead. So you're either going to be dead if you acted too slow, and if you acted too fast, he'll be dead. So if you killed him and he wasn't going to kill you, you might end up in prison. But if you reacted just a hair too slowly, now you're going to end up dead. I'd rather be in prison than dead. I know that's a cliche and everybody says it all the time, and but it's still true. It doesn't mean it's not true. I'd rather end up, you know, trusting my instincts than hesitating and dying. So anyway, go.
One more comment that we got in, or two more comments. Let's see here. Three-way John Cox. Three-way dance for my black belt in Kajukenbo. And then Mr. Alex says, John, I love Angelo's channel, but a lot of the people who love kata don't think the way you do and won't drop it and go your route because it means they need to be in shape to require it of their students.
Wait, what was the first one? What was the first one?
The first one was three-way dance for my black belt in Kajukenbo. Now, I'm thinking, I'm gonna have to go, John, if you can elaborate. I think I know what you're saying. You're saying like you felt like you were dancing for all your kata. Is that right? And if I'm wrong, just go ahead and comment right now that I'm wrong. But that's what I think he was trying to say. That he felt like he was.
I'll tell you that. I'll tell you this. Okay,
Unless he's talking about the two, unless he's talking about the 3-on-1 that we have to do, the 2 to 3-on-1s.
Oh yeah.
Beat the crap out of you as part of your test. And then
Yeah.
clarification, please throw it in now, John. A Cox.
Yeah, that's yeah, no, but there's two things that aren't related, but I honestly think, and I'll bet anyway, I'll put this out there. Pop locking and breakdancing is every bit as effective for a street fight as training katas. I've proved it in the past with a pop locking routine, but I mean that's beside the point. But I don't know what the 3-on-1 attacks. That's nothing to do with the kata, unless it's prearranged. If it's prearranged, then it's not really anything any real for the street. It's just you're just saying that I can memorize things good, just like a kid in school. But I mean, if you're knowing how to fight, that's great. So but organizing, oh, he did this pop, 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 pop. You know what I mean? So the memorization takes everything out. It's called Hicks law. And it means you're thinking of more than one thing. So you're gonna react slower because you got more things to think about, where you shouldn't be thinking about anything. You should just be reacting. And you're not gonna react if it's something choreographed and memorized.
And I can't speak for other schools, Mr. Awak. I can't speak for other schools. I can only speak from my experience and from the school I went to. For the test, we had all the, as you talked about earlier, the proprietary techniques of Kajukenbo that make Kajukenbo. You get tested on that stuff, which include forms and prearranged stuff. But then there was another element where we had to put it into practice, and our 2 to 3-on-1s were not. They were just fights. Like you had to fight 2 black belts at the same time for like 3 minutes. For 3 minutes, and if one guy got tired, they'd put him out, and you'd keep. So if you had 2 black belts, they're fighting you one. And they'll just keep switching them out, so you always have a fresh person. That's what that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
That's stuff we had to do for our tests. And also, they had this other thing where we do these round robins, kind of like the Kyokushin Kumite, where they keep switching the guy to have a fresh guy on you. Except it's not Kyokushin rules; it's Kajukenbo rules. So the guy can take you down, the guy can start hitting you. Sometimes on the transitional period, 2 guys would be hitting you while you're on the ground. You got to get back up. A lot of injuries. I got hit in the head a lot. But I can't speak for all the schools. So when I say that kind of stuff, I don't want people to be like, "Oh, that's what every school is doing." That's what my school is doing.
Yeah, and you think of this. If you think of this, how much better do you think those guys at the real thing would be if they didn't spend even a quarter of their class learning bullshit? They learned real stuff. It's such a waste of their time, energy, money, or whatever, that unless you're Wonderboy Thomason and you've lived in a gym your whole life, or Lyoto Machida, you trained for 12 hours a day your whole life, then you got extra time where you have to do stuff like katas just to fucking kill time. But if you're a hardworking, person that just trains to be a better martial artist, and they only have an hour twice, maybe three times a week, how much time would you put in there to waste to choreograph and memorize a bunch of foolish techniques? Can you imagine if that was all put into more realistic training or even more physicalities?
So
I mean,
John Cox clears up. Me and two other. Okay, yeah, he's saying what I was saying when he said that the
uh,
what he was referring to as the three-way dance. It was me and two other guys for each other. One of us, whoever wins the 2-on-1, sounds like a free for all. If that's, yeah, whoever wins gets their promotion for fighting and sparring. So yeah, they just have, yeah, the free for alls. That's another thing you used to do. The three guys, and it was a free for all, last man standing. I remember that. I remember that. I remember that.
a little more hardcore than ours. I'm not doing that.
Yeah, I don't do that anymore. I do that on a light sense, but not the way I used to. Going back
You
to our
can't.
topic of getting older and things that you change as you get older. I don't know if I'm going to sit there with 225-year-olds and do a last man standing like I didn't know.
For the purpose to do it is the reason it's stupid is like you're either trying to knock those guys out cold, and then you're not really training, you're just hurting each other. And if you don't try to knock them out, of course they'll be able to smother you and do this. So I mean, it's like, yeah, it's that could get too ugly too quick. But I think it would be a good training to like have two guys different angles. What would you do? Maybe, just practice it. But if you're going hard and they're going hard, then it's just, I mean, it's not, I mean, come on.
Well, as a
No,
coach,
if you can't do that.
yeah, no, as whenever I run, I don't run that drill very often because if I do run it, I want to make sure that whoever's involved has enough experience to not flip the switch and start knocking people out. So usually with people a little more experienced, it's a fun drill to do the 2-on-1.
Yeah.
We've agreed that we're not going to knock each other out, and we're going to be okay with the idea that if you end up losing, you're not going to freak out and start going at 100%. You're just going to let that go. So it's a fun drill to do. But yeah, we've really deviated from what we started with. But I think
I might leave that one out. I might leave it out.
Yeah, I don't mind deviating, but I am going to point out that we have deviated. Okay, my Goju Ryu black belt test had 14 damn katas. Mr. Awak is very upset about all the katas he did. Such a waste of time. Taekwondo had only 8. LOL. So yeah, Mr. Awak is very upset about the forms he had to do for his. Sounds like a few black belts there, buddy, huh? You got a black belt in Goju Ryu and also a black belt in Taekwondo. So,
wow.
Either way, I digress.
We're good.
Thank you for coming out to another Live Clean and Fight Dirty live show here on the Pit Online Dojo. If you like what you saw, we have these once a week. Join us every Wednesday, 4:30 to 5:30. Mr. Awak, also thank you for following my channel as well at Social Jello with Angelo. Oh, yes. As always, there's still a few spots open. We say the Pit Online Dojo here on YouTube, but there's an actual online program at thepit.tv. Go there, thepit.tv, and you can sign up for classes. There's 2 sections. If you're not sure if you want to sign up, how that's going to work, you can audit the class. You can see what's being taught. You can even practice along. You won't get a rank for it, but you can see how you fare and what it looks like. And if you want to go the next level, you can go through the entire belt system. You do have to test in person, but you can do most of, I'd say like 80% of the belt system wherever you are in the world, which I think is a great deal.
Wherever you are. Yeah. So that's good.
All right.
Thanks for